So this is the problem that I had shared. A company has achieved an operating profit of 500 million rupees. It enjoys a healthy ICR. ICR stands for interest coverage ratio of 5 times. The corporate taxes are payable at 30%. The company has 2 crore shares outstanding. This year, the board has declared a dividend of rupees 8 crores. The company recorded a net profit margin of 7.5% and achieved an ATO of 1.2 times. ATO is asset turnover ratio. Assuming that the shareholders expect nothing less than 15% as ROI, we are required to estimate the share price as per the Walters model and also PMAX and PMIN and comment on the dividend policy that has been adopted. So what we are supposed to do here is first make sense of the data that is given to us. So best way to approach these kind of problems is to go with the flow of the problem. तो हमारा operating profit is 500 million. Operating profit you all know is EBIT. So earnings before interest and tax is given to us to be 500 million. Minus you will reduce your interest cost. So the interest cost is how much? We will first plot the ICR here. The ICR is 5 times और इसको मैं input के तौर पे treat करूँगा. Input means what? That if I want to change the input, okay, if I want to change the input to play with the numbers, I can. So मेरा interest coverage ratio is EBIT divided by interest. It tells you to what extent your interest obligation is covered by operating profit or operating surplus. So ICR is EBIT by I. So 5 is equal to 500 by I. So I should be equal to 500 by 5, which is 100. I reduce that and I will arrive at PBT, profit before tax of 500 minus 100, which is 400 million. Now the tax rate is also given to us, which is 30%. I don't take that as an input normally because that's not subject to change so much. So I'll just hard code it as 30%. And I will also have my PAT, which is 400 minus 120, which is 280 million. Now, PAT, in the absence of preference dividends, this is the earnings that is available for the equity shareholders. How many shares are there in the company? 2 crore shares. Now, remember, 10 million is 1 crore. So 2 crore should be equal to 20 million. This is also an input, which means that my EPS, earning per share, comes to be 280 by 20, which is 14 rupees per share. और हमारा जो DPS है, dividend per share, they are over 2 crore shares, they are distributing 8 crores as dividend. So 8 by 2. So if I put my DPS here, total dividend is 8 crores. Number of shares 2 crores. So that means my dividend per share is 4 rupees. These are my inputs again. Which means that if I am distributing out of 14, if I am distributing 4 as dividend, that means I am retaining 10 rupees per share. That's my retention. Now, you are also given NPM and ATO as inputs. So net profit margin is given to be 7.5%. ATO is given to be 1.2%. 2 times. Now, how do you make sense of this information? Net profit margin, the formula is net profit divided by sales. Asset turnover ratio, any turnover ratio, you will have the sales or the revenues in the numerator, and the subject, average of the subject in the denominator. So ATO would mean sales divided by assets. So अगर मैं NPM into ATO करता हूं, NPM into ATO, what does it tell you? It will give you net profit by sales into sales upon assets. So sales and sales will nullify, and you will get net profit divided by assets, which is nothing but return on assets. In the event of no further information given, this ROA becomes your internally generated return by the organization. And therefore, this becomes how much? 7.5% input into 1.2 input, which becomes 9%. तो ये आपका this becomes your R. What about your KE? Cost of equity is also given to you. How much is it? It is 15%. This is also an input. So if I adopt the Walters model, it says that P0 is D. D is 4 rupees per share plus R by KE. R is 9% in this example, divided by KE, which is 15%, into E minus D. E minus D is your retention, which is 10. This will be in the numerator. And in the denominator, you have KE, which is 15%. So the price of the share as per Walters model is 66.67. Or I can say that it is 67 rupees. Is it okay? Now this is the pricing as per Walters model. अब हम क्या कर सकते हैं? हम एक sensitivity analysis भी कर सकते हैं between the dividends paid and the retention. So अगर मैं इसको and of course the price. So if I keep my dividend per share here and the price of the share estimated by the Walters model, I will put my dividends here. Suppose मैं इसको for the time being मैं इसको hard code कर देता हूँ. So my dividend is 4 per share. So my price comes out to be 67. Right? Now, if I change my dividends from zero to, if I change my dividends from 0 onwards up to 14, that's the max dividend I can pay, which is the earnings. So I'm starting with 0 and I'm going up to 14. तो ये आपके dividends हो गए. And this is my base case. I'm not going to touch my base case. It's right here. Now I want to see कि अगर मेरा dividend 1-1 रुपए करके बढ़ता है तो मेरे शेयर प्राइस पे क्या इंपैक्ट आता है. दैट सेंसिटिविटी एनालिसिस, बिकॉज आई एम एग्जामिनिंग द इंपैक्ट ऑफ द चेंज इन द इंडिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल अपॉन द डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल. अगर मैं इसकी एक एनालिसिस करता हूं यहाँ, सो आई विल गो टू डेटा, व्हाट इफ एनालिसिस, डेटा टेबल, कॉलम इनपुट क्यों चूज करूंगा? बिकॉज ऑल माई इनपुट्स आर अरेंज्ड इन अ कॉलम, एंड मैं यहाँ पे जाके डिविडेंड को चेंज कर दूंगा. एंड आई प्रेस ओके एंड यू विल सी दैट the prices are obtained. Now you tell me, where is the price minimum? सबसे कम प्राइस कहां है? सबसे कम प्राइस है 0 डिविडेंड में. एंड सबसे ज्यादा प्राइस कहां पे है? नाउ क्या ये हमेशा ऐसे ही होना चाहिए? नहीं, इस केस में ऐसा होगा. क्यों? बिकॉज हमारे शेयर होल्डर्स एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हैं 15% डिविडेंड, 15%, बट वी आर एबल टू जनरेट a return of 9%. So our shareholders are expecting a return of 15%. But if we don't pay dividends and we are reinvesting the earnings back into the company, we are able to generate only 9% return. तो क्या फायदा है reinvest करने का? So since the internally generated return is lower than your cost of equity, therefore it is advisable to pay full dividends, and that's why आप देखोगे कि full dividends पे share price maximize होता है. एंड अगर हम बिल्कुल डिविडेंड ना दें तो हमारा शेयर प्राइस मिनिमाइज हो जाता है. और अभी हमारा शेयर प्राइस जो है वो यहां है, ₹4 डिविडेंड पे 66.67, जो ये नंबर है यहां पे. Is it closer to the minimum or is it closer to the maximum? It is closer to the minimum because हम ज्यादा डिविडेंड नहीं पे कर रहे. And therefore, are we adopting an appropriate dividend policy? The answer is no. अगर सपोज ये उल्टा होता, suppose the shareholders were expecting 9% as return annualized, but हमारी कंपनी 15% internally generate कर रही होती return. In that case, it's better not to pay any dividend and replow the profits back into the business. उस केस में 0 डिविडेंड पे मैक्सिमाइज होता और 100% डिविडेंड में शेयर प्राइस मिनिमाइज होता है. So Walter's model का underlying crux is that dividend policy, appropriateness or otherwise of dividend policy will have a bearing on the market price and consequently the share, the market capitalization. Is it right? It is right. You have seen that, and believe me, that's why if you remember, we discussed about the passive residual policy. Wherever the company has investment opportunities available, and if the investment opportunities are able to generate a return which is higher than the required rate of return, it is better that the company does not pay any dividend. So that is very closely linked to what you have seen now in the Walters model. Okay, thank you.